Hey everyone, I'm Sison, and today we're taking a look at the Zeiss Batis 40mm f2 lens for the Sony E-mount system. Now, I actually filmed this video back when I was in Indonesia, in Jakarta, on the streets there, but you know, stupid me, unfortunately I didn't connect the microphone into the camera properly, so there was a lot of footage without me actually having to say anything. There was no audio, which was quite frustrating, but you know, this is a reminder to always check your equipment, make sure everything's connected properly, and you know, you check the audio and the footage every time you finish filming. So back to the 40mm, this is an autofocusing lens made for the Sony E-mount system. It's actually the middle of the road in terms of the Batis lens lineup. So at the moment you've got the 18mm f2.8, 25mm f2, the 40mm f2 CF, which is the only one in the lineup, the 85 1.8 and the 135 2.8. Now all of these lenses have sort of the same design, but with this lens you actually have a focus distancing switch, which you don't get with any of the other lenses. They're all very simple. They don't have a focusing switch or any buttons that you can actually customize, but they all share that same OLED screen that you do get on the Batis lenses. Now the OLED screen does make it easier to see when it's in dimly lit situations, so you can actually see the focusing distance on an OLED screen, which is great, and you can change that from feet to meters, whatever metric you prefer. Filter diameter is a 67mm filter, and of course they all come supplied with a lens hood. So this is actually a barrel type plastic lens hood to keep the weight down, but without the lens hood it is actually quite small and only weighs about 361 grams, which is going to be great for anyone that wants to take it on hikes or long walks. Now, it's not too heavy and feels very well balanced with the Sony A7 III, which is the camera I've been using it on primarily. It does have a rubber focusing ring as well, which does make it easier to change your focus. And this is great for like an all-purpose type of lens. So the cool thing about this is that it's the only CF lens. CF actually stands for close focus, so that means it can focus closely to your subject where you're photographing food or a flower or anything like that. But this is the only close focus lens in the Batis lineup. And what's cool about this is that you do have a focusing limiter here that's on the side of the lens. It's not actually a macro lens, but you know, in terms of focusing, this is going to be very versatile and will allow you to shoot many different types of subjects. Now, I did take this on a few trips when I did go overseas. So for example, was when I took it to New Zealand, I captured some amazing images from your scenery to like close-up photos of the plant life there and just anything that I could actually shoot. Now, if you've been to New Zealand, there are some great landscapes that you can take photos of, and just the whole place, like the whole surrounding was just amazing. Now back to the Batis lens, just to let you know, it did have a few issues when shooting. So for example, like the aperture changing when you're shooting in close focus distances, as well as autofocusing issues when you would use eye autofocus. So these have been sort of alleviated through a firmware update, and if you do have the Batis 40mm, I'll leave a link to the Zeiss website where you can actually download the firmware. But this has pretty much been nearly fixed in terms of what the downfalls were. And this is actually one of my most favorite lenses that I used last year. So I actually got this and I just fell in love with it. Not just the focal length, but the versatility. As you can see, it's sort of been battered. I did accidentally scratch it on a few surfaces, so it's been through a lot, but in saying that, it's still performed perfectly. The thing I like about this is the Zeiss colors, that pop, that contrast that you get with Zeiss lenses. And you know, if you have tried the Batis lineup before, you would already know that it's such a great lens in terms of build and handling, and just the design of it is just so simple yet elegant at the same time. It's not a perfect lens, but this is my favorite lens from last year. That's mainly due to the build of it. So it is weather resistant, so it can withstand water, it can withstand dust. Obviously don't dunk it in water. There was a bit of vignetting wide open at f2, so stopping it down will help eliminate it. Otherwise you could also correct it in post. Chromatic aberrations weren't noticeable and were under control from what I observed. It was extremely sharp, especially in the centers, and it was acceptable towards the edges and the corners. I had a lot of keepers when I took this overseas from New Zealand to Indonesia to Brunei. And while the f2 aperture and the 9 aperture blades did add some background blur to some of my images, bokeh wasn't as smooth, and I guess it wasn't as pleasing as I'm used to because I actually previously used the Sony 135mm f1.8 GM, which is a whole different beast in itself. Although this is also down to personal preference. Now all of these photos were also shot with the Sony A7 III and the A7R II straight out of the camera. So the Zeiss 40mm f2 is something that I would highly recommend, especially if you want something that's nice and versatile. It is a bit more on the expensive side, so if you want a lens like this is going to be a bit more expensive. It might be out of budget for many photographers out there, but to me it's definitely worth saving up for, and it's a lens that you can definitely fall in love with. Now it's not perfect like I said earlier, and if you do happen to have this lens, do update the firmware because it does alleviate some of those issues that it had when it was released. Now, like I said, if you've tried these lenses or any of the other Batis lenses, you would love the colors that comes out of it, the contrast. I certainly do. It really depends on your own personal preference, but this is something I'd highly recommend. It's actually one of my, I think it's my favorite Batis lens in the lineup at the moment. Great for portraits, scenic shots, and of course close focusing abilities. Now, that's about it from me, so if you have any more questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you already own this lens, let me know what you think of it, and like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my channel for more Zeiss lens reviews and tutorials. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram for more sample photos and photo updates. And don't forget to take a look in the description down below for more information about this lens, as well as affiliate links that do help support the channel, as well as future projects. Until then, happy shooting and thanks for watching. 25mm f2, 2.8. It does have a rubber focusing ring as well, which does make it easier to change your focus. Ooh.